At New York Comic Con 2023, hear me out. I know, hear me out. The cosplay community at large got to witness Sarcasm Hime triumph in the Eastern US Cosplay Central Crown Championships qualifier in a beautiful rendition of The Queen from Snow Glass Apples, written by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Colleen Duran. She would later bring this look to Chicago in 2024 to compete for and to win the national crown title and earn the right to represent the United States in the global finals. But right as she won in New York, she was overshadowed by other competitors' poor sportsmanship. I've said before in regards to other people exhibiting specifically egotistical behavior at contests, but also in my personal experience, I haven't actually met somebody truly like this. And while I considered that true at the time, I really hadn't experienced weird inflated ego or any instance of poor sportsmanship. A lot can change in almost 2 years! So, as we have a growing community of cosplay contest enthusiasts following this channel, and there has been some nonsense in my life, and the lives of this community, I think it's time we had a little chat about all of this. So hello everyone, my name is Mad Dog. I am the elusive, cryptid idiot cosplayer who runs this channel, although maybe I should change the branding to cryptid at this point. And today, we are gonna talk about cheating. Well, before I get into that, let's take a brief look at how cosplay contests work, because cheating can really vary from contest to contest, and there is a reason for that. And as usual, timestamps are in the description, so feel free to skip around. Everyone and their mom has used these words already, but I'm gonna reiterate them here. Cosplay contests, as they exist right now, are the Wild West. That's the long and short of it. Just about anything can and does fly at some contest somewhere. And this is a time and a half. This is, as far as I can tell, just because cosplay contests are still young as a competition space. Before any cosplay contest elders start typing up their life experiences in the comments, just think about it. Cosplay as we know it is nowhere near as old an art form as something like photography, let alone painting. This is a space that's still developing. And it's been around long enough that you can see how some trends within it have come and gone, but it's really not been around that long in the grand scheme of things. Which has landed us here right now in this weird Wild West era. A lot of people see this as really detrimental to cosplay competitors, and that is certainly one of the reasons I made a whole video overanalyzing and making generalizations about cosplay contests to try to help people through them. Which I won't be doing here again, because, I already made that video, but if that interests you, you should totally save it for later. It's also the reason I keep reminding everybody to read the rules, like your specific contest rules. Because all contests are different, and the only way to know what to expect at your contest is to actively become informed about it. I can see why people find the Wild Cosplay Contest West frustrating. Because it can be a fair amount of work even finding a contest that accepts your costume based on its source material, let alone one that might be set up in a way that's intriguing to you, like it's the type of contest that you're interested in being a part of. But I'm not sure that I see this in nearly the negative light that some people seem to see it. Well, there are definitely some accessibility and equity options that I would like to see instilled at every contest. To an extent, I think the Wild Cosplay Contest West as a phase of cosplay contests is good, actually. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I've come to the conclusion this is mainly because I don't like monopolies. In my limited life experience, I have seen time and time again that monopolies are the death of creativity and progress. This is going to be a vast oversimplification of how monopolies work because this isn't an economics class, so I don't care. When a company becomes a monopoly, they have complete control over a specific market. So said monopoly can stop competing for consumers and being competitive altogether. They can stop producing maybe the quality of product that made them the better option and brought them to monopoly status in the first place, and instead create the worst possible product for the consumer that they can, while still technically being that product, and offer it at literally any price. And they can do it because when a company becomes a monopoly, there are quite literally no other companies left to compete with. We've, or according to my channel stats, most probably we've, seen this happen on a large scale with a few different industries. But one most notable to pop culture is a certain online retailer who happens to sell books. Wink. Destroying the brick and mortar book selling industry. Okay, well, technically speaking, when it comes to monopolies, all the blame for what goes under is conveniently for said monopolies put on the consumers. So consumers technically killed the brick and mortar book selling industry by choosing to shop at this online retailer who had better prices and shipping. It doesn't matter that there's a great recession happening and people are broke and desperate. It's 100% completely their choice where they shop. Bookselling for this company was definitely an innovative business decision and not a disgusting scheme to take advantage of people and destroy business competitors in one fell swoop. If it wasn't clear, this is sarcasm. This online retailer killed the brick and mortar bookselling industry, and we all know it, and it fucking sucks. I should probably say here that true monopolies are illegal in the United States. So to be fair, they are not quite a true monopoly, as there are definitely still some other booksellers around. I, for one, am thrilled by this. I'm thrilled that I can still drive to the mall and support my Barnes & Noble if I want a new volume of whatever shonen manga I'm reading to fill the void. But these spaces are not the same as they once were. Quality and prices have changed dramatically, and borders will never be back. Even within that example, companies like Viz, who has the majority of the manga market here in the US, have gone from producing these beautiful 12th edition Death Note Volume 1s with lovely cover accents, look at the shine on the title, and pretty solid page quality for only $8, to printing on low quality paper, gluing covers on poorly, and cutting pages with a huge margin for error for $10. Don't get me wrong, I'll still be supporting Viz. Overall, I love them. And I don't blame them for a lot of the choices they've had to make to stay afloat because of that one online retailer. And let's be real, I need my shonen manga. But I would go back to the quality that Viz used to print at in a heartbeat. I have made a lot of comparisons between cosplay contests and competitive sports in my videos. And I've talked about the Cosplay Central Crown Championships and the Olympics a lot among those. But as a little thought experiment, imagine if there were only the crown when it came to competitive cosplay, or only the Olympics when it came to competitive sports. Imagine if competitions on that level were the only option if you wanted to get into competing. If competitive spaces were monopolized like that, competing would be a garbage experience for anyone who wasn't at the top of the ladder already, or for anyone who didn't have the obscene amount of wealth required to climb it, at a loss of everything like time, money, life in general, for a long, long time. While rules and divisions and whatnot are becoming more standardized at contests, and there are certain things that I've talked at length about as now being things that you can expect based on whatever limited information you have on a contest that you want to compete at. I never want to see a true monopoly on how cosplay contests are run. Because right now, we're in a time where we have been gifted the opportunity to sculpt our contests and make them into a variety of different types of contests that are all wonderful and good fits for different types of competitors. If the day comes where contests are monopolized, that day will be the death of the progress that I want to see made in cosplay contests. The death of the fight for accessibility and equity. So as far as a brief-ish look at how cosplay contests work, we're in the wild cosplay contest west. And in a way, this is good. Until it comes to cheating, because right now, regulating contests is a show. I believe I said just about anything can and does fly at some contest somewhere, and this is a time and a half. To put it simply, this is exactly why cheating can look like almost anything as well. The definition of cheating really depends on each individual contest's set of rules. To add to this, rules are totally in flux. What's fine one year, maybe even praised that year, may be banned the next as cosplay contests try to figure out what works for them. Of course, things like safety concerns can arise, and brand image concerns too, but a lot of times contests may change rules because they want to focus on goals, like diversifying and growing. Or maybe just limitations year to year, like they may not have the tech options that they had the year prior. These things are always changing, and along with them, the definition of cheating. To show you just how much contests can change, let me show you one of my favorite examples from the crown itself. So this guy, Cap Santiago, is pretty flippin' cool. He actually went out and entered and won awards at the New York Comic-Con crown, the Emerald City Comic-Con crown, and the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo crown, all by 2017. For the record, the crown only started in 2014, and he made this post about being what he dubbed a Triple Crown winner. Can I just say, so well deserved. Like, what an achievement, literally so inspiring. I don't know if people were directly inspired by him or what, but since him doing this, a lot of people have put their hats in the ring for multiple crown contests too. And some of them even in the same contest cycle. Got their names over here so I don't say them wrong. Our Shield Maiden, Canvas Cosplay, Rattle and Burn, Pepper Monster, and Air Bubbles Cosplay, just to name a few. Like, a lot of people have competed at more than one contest in one contest season. And while you can still go for the Triple Crown challenge over the course of a couple years, the way Cap Santiago did, you can't even attempt this in the same contest cycle anymore, because it's banned. To be clear, I think that all the people that I just mentioned are icons and you should totally give their cosplays a look, but you just can't compete like this anymore. The actions they took weren't against the rules at the time, and they weren't bad, like they weren't morally dubious or something. They were literally just having a good time, going to compete in the contest that they wanted to. But the crown has grown, and along with that, staff has decided, probably for a variety of reasons, that actions like these are no longer permitted. Cosplay contests are growing and changing, and along with them, their rules are too. And unfortunately, I'm getting cold actually. And unfortunately, that does mean that you have to read them again for every contest, year after year, and that things can be a pain in the ass for everyone to keep track of, competitors and coordinators alike. Because if you don't, and did something like this for the crown contests today, and somehow managed to get away with it for a little while, it would eventually be found out and considered cheating, and there would be repercussions at the coordinator's discretion. Yeah, this is a big downside to the Wild Cosplay Contest West. But there's actually an even bigger downside to this. Well, theoretically. So this is actually really hard to prove because essentially when contests update their rules pages each year, unless someone has saved a previous iteration of said rules page, there's no real way to compare them, which kind of stinks. I've even tried to compare bigger contest rule pages that may happen to be saved on archive.org, but a lot of those have like changing page links that are like hard to keep track of. And within those pages, like a lot of dead links to downloadable PDF versions of the rules, which are just not archived and lost to me. So I really can't just point to like one specific piece of evidence and go, there, got him. But theoretically, cosplay contest rules are sometimes created and put in place because there is morally dubious behavior. And let's be real, just like we were about that one retailer, we all know that this is happening. Like, we have all heard of or lived through our fair share of local cosplay contest incidents and the rules they miraculously spawned the next year. But also, like, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, because I'm just speaking from personal experience and don't have that got 'em sourced moment. So yeah, this is exactly how it sounds. Because cosplay contests are not nearly as established as other contest systems on the whole, and individual contests maybe even more so, there are often holes in underdeveloped rules that people can exploit. And this can just suck. There are so many people who show up to contests really putting their all into them. Like, really respecting fellow competitors and the contest and what the contest stands for. But every so often, you get that one person who sees a rule that's worded just a little bit too leniently, and they take advantage of it. And sure, the rules change the next year, but also in the moment, they kinda just get away with it, and it feels bad. The Wild Cosplay Contest West can feel bad. If you ever experience something like this at a contest, my best recommendation is please talk to your coordinators and/or fill out con feedback. Make it known that you weren't okay experiencing this. Things like this are awful, and I hope that they don't happen to you. But if they do, you can at least give yourself some solace in knowing that you did something about it. And even though I've talked about how the specifics of cosplay contests right now can impact people and how exactly they might choose to behave like crap, There are always going to be people who just flat out break the rules and hope they get away with it, even when the rules are extremely established. I've been watching The Crown since its inception, and unlike the cosplayers I mentioned earlier, there have been quite a few instances that I can point out as blatant disregard for the rules and subsequent disqualification. If you notice someone doing something scuffed or openly cheating at a con, I'd also recommend reaching out about it and being more forthwith than not for everyone's sake. I hope you never have to experience something like this, but I hope that in whatever circumstance you may have to deal with, that truth will out, and that you can find more than just solace in reaching out. I hope that you can be proud that you did your part to keep this community fair and safe. I also feel like I gotta add here for like posterity or whatever. There will forever be differences between your specific sets of morals and any given contest rules. The same way your morals will be different from any random stranger you meet on the street. There is a lot that many people will agree upon, especially in a niche space where people are often like-minded. But there are things that people just don't agree upon because we're people. Microscopic tangent here. Flat-out hatred and hate crimes are not acceptable within this community, and definitely not on my channel. When I say people can disagree, I'm talking about gray areas in rule wording that can actually be disagreed upon, like minutia on where exactly to draw a line. Not like race face, which is and has always been racist and not okay. This is a reminder that this channel is not a safe space for racists. End tangent. So these gaps are always going to be there to a degree because we as people value different things. But in regards to the relatively new space of cosplay contests, there can sometimes be some really appalling rule gaps to exploit. Not to mention the gaps that aren't even there on the page. Like expectations of good sportsmanship. When I brought up Sarcasm Hime and New York Comic Con 2023 at the beginning of this video, oh yeah, we're going back to this, I said that her win was overshadowed by other competitors' poor sportsmanship. And it was tragic. Specifically, two people that I'm aware of behaved particularly bad. One, Abhorrent cosplayer, and that's a great pun if you know what I'm referencing, had a terrible reaction, but was somehow even eclipsed by a different competitor who really threw themselves into Sarcasm Hime's spotlight by running a campaign across social media, boosting the slanderous rhetoric of people who wanted their costume to win above hers, most notably demanding #justice for their costume. The Abhorrent cosplayer really dodged a bullet there, at least for a little while, by somehow happening to be less bad right then. It's really, really tough to look back on these events and these competitors' egregious behavior and just how far they took it, because Sarcasm Hime was so deserving of her win. And the cosplay community spotlight should have been on her and her work. And instead, just a few people absolutely filled our community spaces with rage. But to make things worse, the cosplay contest community chose to focus in on these contestants and their poor behavior rather than her work. Wait, you thought this video was gonna be about cheating? And how individual cheaters and poor sportsmen suck? Something you, an upstanding competitor, would never have to be involved with or take responsibility for? Well, joke's on all of us because we're all responsible. This video is an introspective look at our community, what we can do better, and why I think cosplayers should unionize. We'll get to the hard introspective bit in a minute. But yeah, you heard that bamboozling proclamation right. I think that cosplayers should unionize. Okay, not in the traditional, like, a bunch of workers in a certain industry come together to form a labor union to negotiate via collective bargaining agreements sense. We are just hobbyists. There may be prize money at contests sometimes, but we're not workers. We don't get wages or employment benefits. Although honestly, a labor union for pro cosplayers might not be a bad idea. However, we can absolutely unionize in a less than traditional way, and we can unionize however we want to. I'm pretty open with the fact that I want to see progressive changes within cosplay contests. But to put it simply, there are things that we cannot get done as only individuals. No matter how many times I alone talk about this in my videos or posts, or email my coordinators or leave convention feedback. This is your reminder to leave convention feedback whenever and wherever you have the chance. That can only go so far. I feel pretty lucky to say that some of the requests and feedback that I've put out there have been heard, but a lot of it hasn't. And I think a lot of that is because there really just needs to be more voices asking for change. In an ideal world, and the especially delusional cosplay haven part of my brain, we cosplayers could literally unionize and ask contests to make changes that would better suit our community for our community. And if they didn't, we could strike and make demands because they literally wouldn't have contests, the marquee event at a lot of conventions, without us. But that's not even remotely a possibility right now in the wild Cosplay Contest West. In a way, all we have right now are larger and more established unions and organizations to look up to as inspiration. And a lot of these are really cool to look up to. More established groups have entire systems that keep track of competitors and work continually to create the most fair rules for competition and deliberation that they can make. I'm gonna use United States Figure Skating as an example because it's an organization that I know better than most, just thanks to my cousin being involved in synchronized skating for pretty much her whole life. Which I can only assume was miserable when Unionize aired, and that's all I wanted to talk about. Be my cool! I have no regrets. But so, the way that US Figure Skating works is that every member has a member ID number, and they can get their membership through a specific skating club or directly through US Figure Skating. And there are a lot of different membership tiers that work with how people want to participate in skating. So if you're a more casual skater, just learning to skate, and want to keep track of your progress through the US Figure Skating program, there's a membership option for you. If you're on a synchro team and participating in big shows and competitions, US Figure Skating compiles and tracks what competitions you participate in and how you do in them. And you can see this, you can see your whole skating career laid out on your member profile. And they even have some sports accident insurance options included in some memberships. But speaking of careers, if you are a pro skater, they also work directly with and fund Team USA through the United States Figure Skating Athlete Support Fund. US Figure Skating recognizes and supports their members in ways that we as cosplayers can only dream of right now. Now, we do not have an established organization like this. And while I don't know what the future will hold, and as inspiring as it may be for me and my fellow daydreamers to see a system like this, to be blunt, I don't think we'll have anything like this anytime soon. We are not ready for an organization like this. We don't really have the means to create it, let alone support it, and any attempts to create it might even unwittingly make current accessibility issues at contests all the worse. So I'm not saying that we should unionize to this degree, in the very least not right now, but I do think that we should start uniting in our own way. We aren't yet to a place where we can act on a huge systemic scale, and that's fine, we're growing. But one of the big problems with cosplay contests, as I see them, is there are ways that we can act together, and even start creating some building blocks for something larger out of this weird era. But we're not necessarily always doing them, and we're definitely not always acting for the good of our community. You know how I said there were 2 competitors who behaved poorly at NYCC 2023? Well, the Abhorrent competitor, who I haven't really talked about yet, has gone on to be one of the most notorious people in the cosplay community. They are known for sandbagging relentlessly at contests with a costume, maybe even multiple, that they didn't actually create. Gossip and speculation about this person regarding their personality, wondering if there's a way to armchair detective prove their NYCC costume wasn't made by them or was only very slightly altered by them, and other general misinformation about them has garnered millions of views across social platforms. And that view count is still rising. Even Yaya Han threw in her 2 cents about this cosplayer, saying in a tweet, with some presumably unintentional irony, "I'm not adding to the topic of competing with an entirely bought costume and lying about having made it yourself, because there's nothing to add. We all know it's wrong. Disqualified." Listen, I'm a big fan of Yaya Han's work. I can confirm a whole bunch of cosplay idiots, mostly named Mad Dog with the handle Telekinetic Maniac, saw that tweet and went, but But come on, is that not worded like accidentally hilariously in retrospect? Humor aside, so much time and effort and community space has been put into discussing these poor competitors. And for what? By complete happenstance, I actually met this cosplayer at a local con, and in the aforementioned NYCC costume, no less. Yep, this is a piece of what's changed for me these past couple years, although we're not gonna really talk about my personal experience with them. Anyway, according to first-hand accounts, the judges of the contest at this con were made aware of potential concerns regarding this competitor, and they did disqualify them. What Yayahan tweeted is exactly how the situation was handled at that convention, which, for what the situation was and for what my opinion is worth, I think is good. Quietly disqualifying them from the contest and any chance at awards both didn't bring any unnecessary attention to this competitor, as they were allowed to still go about their day and cross the stage without inciting any major incidents, but also allowed the most deserving competitors to earn their awards without any concern over the contest's integrity. Genuinely, I think it was handled well for that event, but I'm hesitant to say that it was handled well in its entirety, because that local con was Anime Boston 2023, a con that happened long before NYCC 2023, and if I'm not mistaken, literally all of the other contests, this competitor brought this specific costume and the various forms of misconduct related to it too. AB may have been made safe from them, but the contest community as a whole wasn't. They got away with so much before this scandal very publicly broke in early February 2024. They entered multiple other contests, won awards even. No one stopped them in those situations. This hurt a lot of people, and I don't know if these situations have been remedied. While it's been heavily discussed online, and probably even more so like among friends casually this whole past year, is it even being handled well behind the scenes at contests now? Yayahan says disqualified, but are they actually? Could they not go on to repeat their actions in the future? As far as I'm aware, this competitor rebranded their socials for Anime Boston 2024. It seems to me that they could easily compete under this new name. And the Justice 4 competitor didn't even need a rebrand. I feel a little bit insane bringing this up because for all the gossip I've seen about this event, I have not seen anyone at all post anything about this. But the Justice 4 competitor literally went on to compete at New York Comic-Con 2024. Literally, the same contest. The one out of every single contest on the planet that you would think would be the most weary of them. That contest let them compete again. And I don't know the whole situation. I have explicitly not used the names of these sus competitors throughout this video because I don't know, and I don't want to put them in the spotlight again. And I don't want anyone to go after them any more than they already have, because there could be a very good reason that this competitor was back. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes at NYCC to keep things fair and safe for their competitors, and if this was considered in that process. But I have to question what may or may not be being done, because this competitor was there. They were accepted through a supposedly rigorous application process into the contest, and they walked across that stage to thunderous applause. They were physically in that contest around fellow cosplayers that they had previously slandered. And that gives me pause. I'm not a compulsive screenshotter, so I don't have pictures of everything I saw in the moment back in 2023. Rather, just a few comments left over on an official NYCC post, and of course the content mill drama content that has come out after the fact. But I have seen so much gossip, so much outrage, dozens if not hundreds of posts that claimed that the contest community was small and coordinators would remember, and that this competitor would never compete again. And in the most literal sense, absolutely nothing seems to have come of this. For all this talk, there was no action. These posts had no real impact. It was all just noise. I am always going to be someone who believes in sharing information. And another side note, I don't believe in that bull promoted by like uppity holes, claiming that people need to share things calmly and politely, just to earn the right to be taken seriously and treated with respect. Like, get the fuck out of here with that victim blaming and shaming mentality. People can be upset and they're still deserving of respect when they are. End side note. But I think we as a community need to re-examine how we collect and share information. And I think we as a community need to commit to doing better for each other. You might be wondering how I figured out that the Justice 4 competitor was back for NYCC 2024, when no one else seems to have noticed. Or because I don't have eyes on every corner of the internet, maybe I should just say there doesn't seem to be the public outrage that was expressed over this competitor back in 2023. Yeah, stay tuned, don't at me. And that is because, for the past few years, I've been working on a project that documents and credits every single cosplayer who has participated in the United States Crown Championships. All iterations of the regional, national, and global contests as they have been. And it's not done, and to be fair, it won't ever be done so long as this contest continues. But I have a hefty amount of information compiled in another ridiculous Google sheet of mine for anyone interested to see. And yeah, this is what allowed me to notice that this competitor was back again for 2024. Remember that ramble I went on about Monopolies and the wild Cosplay Contest West earlier? Now, like, I said it was to have a base understanding of how contests work and how this can impact cheating before I tricked everyone and changed the thesis of my video. Raise your hand if you zoned out during that section and now have regrets. Well, I didn't say all that for only those reasons. I've been working on this project and all of my weird research projects because we're in this strange era of cosplay. Because we don't have some sort of overarching system, a lot of our history, in a general sense, is rather frustratingly being covered up by drama or just lost to time and a lack of suitable records. This project was simple in theory, but quickly evolved into a full-blown research project, complete with me obsessing over mostly broken archived web pages. The idea was find a photo archive or video that documented the contest in as complete a state as possible, try to transcribe it, and then obsessively search for the names of cosplayers and characters as I think I've heard them until I actually find them so that I can document and credit them. You know, casual. Honestly, I didn't think it sounded that bad, but then I tried to do it and it took longer than Link. But oh well. Because the thing is, this project has so many potential uses. The obvious one, of course, being actual credit. Because let's be real, these contests are using cosplayers' faces and their incredible work, and they aren't even linking back to their portfolios a lot of the time. Like, this is a whole other conversation, but to keep it short, it's disgraceful. But another use of this project could be to help mitigate cheating scandals and poor sportsmanship. Imagine if someone had noticed the Justice 4 competitor when looking through applications because they had access to a resource like this, recalled everything that had happened, maybe even because a previous coordinator made note of it in said resource, and chose not to let them back into NYCC 2024. Or what if the Abhorrent cosplayer's sandbagging had been noticed earlier because a local coordinator checked a resource like this for a couple cons while checking over applications and saw that they kept bringing the same costume to contests and simply questioned that. There are a few ways to discern if someone's sandbagging. Questioning a competitor directly about potential updates to a costume, or reaching out to other local contest coordinators, to name a couple. But like, someone has to initially notice a potential problem, and resources like this could have given someone the chance to. Obviously for this case, it's hard to notice that they bought a costume that someone else made, but that problem would have been moot had they already been caught for sandbagging. The only flaw to this idea is, while I've been actively trying to combat the Wild Cosplay Contest West, it's been doing its own thing. I've been working on this project for so long that I've experienced in real time the loss of old sites or social media accounts or posts that I was using as sources. Not to mention how search engines have completely changed within the last year or so. Now even the ability to search out sources is being hindered by algorithms and generative AI. AI ain't inherently evil, but Gen AI as it is right now. And this has been made more frustrating to me just by being aware that out of all the cosplay contests in the world, the Crown is one of the more documented ones. It has been so difficult to put this together, but I've been able to do it, whereas with some contests, you just can't. The information is gone. It's kinda astonishing what a project like this could do for our community, given the times and how quickly information is lost on a community-wide level. And to think about what more projects like this could do when looking at them all together. This could be a way we unionize and make the space better for us. But before I go off the deep end, connecting all these concepts, the good and the bad, like a light bulb, has just lit up above my head. Here's where I have to acknowledge one other really important thing. Something larger that brings this all together in a way that I as an individual simply can't. I have to admit that this project almost never happened, like on a public and community accessible level. I know we can do better on a community level, and we could do even more, because this project would have never happened without our community. I'm not kidding, this project started off as a total hodgepodge in my notes app, with a million typos and random formatting and links. And you know, some favorite Anime Boston competitors thrown in there as well. Just, you know, some extra chaos graded on top. But eventually this became a real and hopefully now accessible and easy to understand Google Sheet after a fellow local cosplayer, Fancy Ducky, expressed interest in working on a similar project for Anime Boston, which to be fair, I have not worked on that as obsessively as this one, but that's also a Google Sheet project that we've been working on. Both will be linked with a ton of other sources in the description. Huge shout out to Ducky for being the catalyst that started the Anime Boston project and inadvertently made this one a reality as well. And also for having some amazing ideas, because let's be real, this project would still be a hodgepodge without her organizational input. And also for just being a great cosplayer and competitor, like totally check out her work. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, I would have never done this had I not seen some interest from our community directly. This would have just remained a thing on my notes app and no one else would have ever had access to it. Because after seeing the community always focusing on the bad, millions of views to the scandals, while only a couple thousand likes to the people who deserve to be celebrated, I didn't think anyone else was interested. So much in this community can be overshadowed by gossip. But thanks to Ducky, I got to see a piece of the cosplay community that is genuinely interested in seeing a project like this, and I acted on it. It's actually been a revelation to see that little piece of interest, because now I see it everywhere. In Insta stories, on TikTok, in my own inbox, wondering when I'm gonna release it to the public already. Jesus Christ, Mad Dog, we're all waiting. But also in other people having literally already done similar projects. In my pile of research tabs that I'm very excited to finally close and let my computer rest for 20 minutes before moving on to some other weird project. I found these amazing graphics by Chad of Cos Armor and Props and Amber of Bodoni Cosplay showing Honest to Cosplay Gods winners brackets for the 2018 and 2020 Crown Circuit respectively, which is literally so cool. Please go and give them some love for these. So, interest in documentation may have been drowned out in the past for some years, but the community is here and ready to accept and celebrate projects just like the one I'm working on. And I've seen this celebration on a larger scale. In 2015, Shaka of Princessology created the hashtag 28 Days of Black Cosplay to celebrate Black cosplayers for the entire month of February, or Black History Month here in the United States. And this is precisely what it sounds like. A 28-day-long celebration where individuals are encouraged to use the hashtag and share their favorite Black cosplay creators every single day. In an interview for Essence magazine, she says, "Visibility, representation, and celebration have always been the core tenets of 28 Days of Black Cosplay." And they still are. Almost a decade later, this celebration is still going strong. It's even inspired other works like Chibi Magical Girl's master list of Black cosplayers. Hell yeah, I am not the only one who makes long, obsessive Google projects for the benefit of the cosplay community. People are interested. Also again, please check out these creators' works. Heads up, Princessology does more roller skating nowadays, and Chibi Magical Girl makes actual Insta posts almost as infrequently as me, but they are both wonderful and worth a follow. Lately, I've been trying to show interest in progressive works outside of my own projects, hoping that maybe just a little bit of encouragement will inspire people who might be in the same boat I was in. I don't know how many projects I might have missed out on while I was caught up in community-wide contest drama. And I have no idea how you engage with the community, but I'd be remiss not to recommend that you try this too, even if you haven't been caught up in whatever people are going off about at any given time. Who knows what just a shred of interest might inspire, especially if we can take it one step further and show active support instead. Recently, I stumbled across novice cosplay advocating for requiring captions on masquerade performance AV files, which is flippin' brilliant. Like, this would be such a simple change to contests given the state of most editing programs, but it's so smart. Like, why is this not the norm already? Like, together, we should normalize this. Novice can't email every single coordinator on the planet, and I would never expect them to. But we could. United, we could change the state of the cosplay contest community right now. Like, literally. I literally mean right now. Email your contest coordinators asking for this change because it is so flippin' easy to accommodate. You don't even have to write the email yourself if you don't want to. Scroll down. I've written one for you. Just pull up your contest coordinator's email, copy paste, and send. You can support the work that Novice has started and create this change right now. So do it. Go, go, go. I'm actually really curious to see if anybody watches the rest of this video or if I've just doomed myself to being paused in a forgotten tab. If I did, oops. If you did somehow make your way back to this video, please check out Novice's work. I know I'm personally more of a craftsmanship competitor rather than performer, and you might be too if you're following this channel. But I literally love cosplay performances, like I rarely miss a masquerade. And they have some really cool skits that I think you would like. I keep catching myself pondering NYCC 2023 because I think in a lot of ways we need to reconcile with what happened there. And that's hard to say and possibly even harder to hear, especially if you haven't already been reconciling with it for countless hours while working on an obscene Google Sheet and probably overly long ramble. And I truly believe that. And I hope you listening in while you work on your own contest builds will consider that. But I can also see through the works of many people that the cosplay community and the cosplay contest community have the beginnings of so much more within them. There was even some good to come out of NYCC 2023 itself. And no, it's not just that everyone's angry stories were deleted after 24 hours, leaving us with only the record of comments on official NYCC posts, including a couple that are actually rather thoughtful. It's the fact that at NYCC 2024, despite the few annoying comments exhibiting poor contest behavior that somehow always seem to arise after a contest like this, the cosplay contest community didn't give these comments or any poor sportsmanship the time of day. We learned from 2023 and changed. And I'm so glad my crown crediting project in this honestly supplementary video rather than the other way around took so long to make because I can't imagine a better follow-up to all that's happened. Like, for all the gossip and the nonsense and the people who are still, for some reason, making drama content about it, the cosplay community as a whole had a redemption arc if I've ever seen one. It doesn't change what happened after NYCC 2023, but it does tell me, and hopefully you, that we really can do this. We are better than we were, and we can create lasting change. Because we already have changed as a community. We aren't ready for a system that we don't have the means for, but we can start taking the first steps to build something that's more than we have now in whatever way we want. Working at the local level to preserve our own history, creating resources that benefit a contest's integrity, and goddammit, actually creating some accessibility and equity options within our contests. There's so much being done already, so many projects to support. Even though there have been some less than great moments, and there are shortcomings in this community that we as individuals just can't tackle on our own, there are changes we can make together. There's an incredibly well-known movement within the cosplay community, and TBH the convention-goer community as a whole, that's been called a variety of things over the years, but is best known now as cosplay is not consent. I know it's like actually well-known. Everyone's mind was just blown because I didn't bring up some obscure factoid or organization and expect everyone to have a clue what I was talking about the way I do in other videos. This movement has been spectacularly progressive and, dare I say it, life-changing for us cosplayers. I personally started cosplaying in 2012 and attending conventions in 2013, right before this movement really took off. I was very young then. I was still in high school, and even now, I remember just how things were in those early years. I really loved the idea of cosplay and kept trying to carve out a space for myself within the community, but I kinda hated a lot of the experience of cosplaying. I remember like uncomfortably trying to talk to my friends about it too, being like, man, I don't know, like I love a lot of it, but also sometimes things just are weird. And I didn't really have the vocabulary I have now to describe exactly what I was feeling, but in retrospect, I know I felt objectified. There were so many people who behaved like they were entitled to your time and your face and your body if you were in cosplay. They would ask revolting questions without fear of repercussion or snap pictures without consent because it was like they thought you were at the con for their entertainment rather than the exact same reason they were there, just also wearing a costume. I went down this whole other internet rabbit hole recently to see if I could find direct evidence of how and when this movement started and when I personally became aware of it, which I'll talk more about in a second. But all that really did was point out just how much more fucking terrible things were outside of my personal experiences. I'm gonna use some heavy words to describe conventions pre-Cosplay is Not Consent in the next couple sentences. I found among a bunch of really old and gross forum threads discussing the topic, some people stating disturbing ideas, like how they thought cosplayers deserved to be sexually objectified if they wore revealing outfits. I also found this screenshot of Yaya Han's Twitter feed, she's always relevant apparently, where she is rightfully scared for her safety because some horrendous people were using the hashtags Grope Crew and Rape Crew on Twitter and talking about all the people they were planning on assaulting at A-Kon in 2013. And this is real, by the way. I sifted through the severe lack of search functionality that Twitter has nowadays to discern that this is real. And it's actually a lot worse than this screenshot makes it out to be. And the only thing good to come out of this whole situation was this banger of a tweet. So that's all just hell. I'm not saying conventions are free of this behavior nowadays, but things were really bad, and they legitimately changed for the better because of this movement. Following up on my rabbit hole, I was never able to find the post that started the Cosplay is Not Consent movement, or rather the group that's often credited as the catalyst for it, on my own directly. Because ultimately the site that it was published to has long since been taken down, and the group that made it seems very defunct. However, thanks to this movement being so big, there is a fan lore wiki article on it, and that thankfully has preserved some of how this movement began. The wiki ultimately says that this movement has been recorded as early as 2012, but started to gain serious traction in 2013 after the 16-bit Sirens, specifically Sushi Killer, what a name, of that group released a blog post about creating a collection of images featuring different cosplayers at WonderCon, holding a whiteboard mostly with the phrase, "Cosplay does not equal consent" written on it. And while their site is still down, you can still technically access these images via their Flickr feed, like I clearly have. So please take a moment to appreciate this snippet of cosplay history. And if anyone knows these cosplayers, please shout them out in the comments. I have a separate file going and linked in the description to credit them, and I'd really love to get them that credit they so deserve. From there, the movement took off after ReedPop introduced their own Cosplay is Not Consent signage at New York Comic Con in 2014. Yeah, we are somehow back to NYCC. Out of all the conventions in the world, NYCC is apparently an event TM every goddamn year! As well as a refined anti-harassment policy after some serious sexual harassment incidents were reported at the previous iteration of the con. Actually, the wiki says specifically, and I quote, "New York Comic Con 2014 was the first major con to post the phrase publicly. And this is neither here nor there, but that is the biggest diss on Anime Boston I have ever seen, as the 16-bit Sirens themselves have a picture of Anime Boston 2013 sporting a Cosplay is Not Consent sign! Which, believe it or not, was before NYCC 2014! F***ing rude. I appreciate you, Anime Boston. But I digress. It really did take off from there. Cosplayers did rally, and conventions and convention goers changed for the better. I often credit the Boston I see you! You too! I often credit the Boston Stucks at Boston Comic Con 2014, RIP, for being the reason I stuck with cosplay and love it as I do today. But after running around my internet rabbit hole, scrolling through cosplay history, and scrolling through my own personal history, also known as my old Tumblr feed, yikes, I can confidently say it was more than that. It was also the huge shift in convention culture that happened all thanks to this movement. And it's ironic as considering the projects that I've been working on, but also more importantly, a huge shame. How much of it just isn't documented. I don't know these cosplayers. I would have never found the 16-bit sirens at all without the wiki having a link to an archive.org copy of their old site. Even though at the time of recording this video, this is arguably the biggest cosplay movement of all time. I don't know exactly where we as a community are supposed to go from here. And I sure as hell am not gonna pretend to. There's a lot of options, like you've seen what I'm currently up to, what I'm interested in. I've said my piece. But I'm not an oracle. I don't know what the future holds. But I want to see us right now unionize and join together to create a similar movement within our competition spaces. I want to see us do better for each other. I want to see our history documented. I want to see meaningful change. Not just one piece of outrage forgotten for the next. I want to see the New York Comic Con 2024 Cosplay Contest community response to every contest for the rest of time. Right now, we're in the wild cosplay contest west. We don't have the infrastructure to do a lot of the things that long-running, huge organizations can do. But in a way, that's good. It leaves the door open for us to create something for ourselves in these times. We have the opportunity to unite and strengthen at the local level and build ourselves up from there. We may not be able to unionize in a massive, literal sense, but we can still follow that sentiment. We can still join together to do something good. We're standing on the precipice of what could be the next big movement in cosplay history. We don't need to or have to ever put up with any scandal, discussed or not discussed in this video, ever again. No more sandbagging with bot costumes. No more smear campaigns with no repercussions. So long as we do something about it. In case it wasn't clear yet, the problem with cosplay contests is us. But our behavior is something we can change. So long as we don't get stuck in a loop of reactions followed by complacency. So long as there are no more comments that never reach coordinators' ears. So long as we don't let that spark of change go out at the individual level, when there are people who could and want to support it. We can't not do something real about this anymore. As Yaya Han once said, standing upon the precipice of cosplay is not consent. Fuck that. This is why we cosplayers need to rally. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching my latest foray into cosplay-induced psychosis. Did this video even make any sense? Whatever, I appreciate you. And I want to hear from you. Tell me about something that you would like to see improved upon in cosplay contests, as well as any creators you know who may be already working towards that or something you're also passionate about. I'm sure we all have very different contest experiences and priorities when it comes to improving them, as well as different understandings of like little pieces of a much larger community, but it would be really awesome to see all those ideas come together in the comments. With pooled knowledge and collective brainstorming, you never know. We might even be able to create some opportunities and support for change right here. Also, I can't believe I'm saying this after being gone for like a year. I am so sorry, this took forever. Also, life things happened. And what I'm willing to share of those will become clear in time, I promise. But thank you, 3K! You absolute mad lads, I really don't know why you're here, but I'm glad you are. And speaking of other numbers I don't understand, thank you all for your hours and hours of watch time, because it's been a hell of a journey, but I am officially monetized here on YouTube. I could wax poetic about this, and I debated doing so. But I decided that, in the end, I actually don't think it's worth wasting more of your precious life hours. You've already given me 4,000, and now however cosplay god's forsaken long this video is. So let me just say instead, genuinely, this means so much to me. And at the risk of sounding like a PBS fundraising message, it was all thanks to you. So, thank you. Anyway, see you next time.